Smiling now.
What's going on, guys? We are on live on the Sensible Prepper.
I tell you what, we start off early today. You're like 15, both of us walking in, get set up, both here early. What are we going to do? We're both here early. Last second, Don's like, I got to get this. We need to add this in today. I need to have this so we can talk about it. 30 seconds to go. Bull's in here with his hair on fire. Let's do this.
No, I didn't. I said I wasn't ready. Is what I really said.
Yeah. You know, I'm going with the let's do this because that's what you were really thinking.
Great to have you guys. Robbie Wheaton from Wheaton Arms.
Woo.
Ready to rock and roll. We have some pretty cool stuff. Robbie, Wheaton Arms, been a gunsmith for over 20 years, has WheatonArms.com, does a lot of custom gun work, but he also has a great line of custom Glock parts, and that flat face trigger, I have to say it every time, it's the best for Glock. It's just phenomenal. Also GoMed gear.
That's right.
With a lot of medical supplies, and check out GoMed gear.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to make the holes, you got to be able to plug them.
Especially if you shoot yourself. Okay.
Let's not go there.
Woo! And we really appreciate Sarah Mack for being over, monitoring all the comments and questions. We will be taking questions at some point.
AKA adulting.
Yeah, she's keeping us in line. As you can tell, we're kind of out of control today.
Moderator.
Hall monitor. We are, it's raining today, so we're a little bit pent up. So we're ready to rock. But great to have you guys with us. And today we're going to be talking about EDC on steroids, honestly. And we're going to get into it in just a second. We do appreciate Sportsman's Guide. They'll give you $20 off every $100 or more purchase using Sootch. So just go to, we can't put a link down below. So just go to Sportsman's Guide, put in Sootch, no 00, and you get $20 off every $100 or more purchase.
And you got to sign up for their Buyers Club as well. Buyers Club, you get free shipping on most items as well as some discounts over their regular pricing. So it's a great deal. Check out the Buyers Club too.
Yeah, I think ammo is not free shipping, but
right.
Definitely check out. They're just great. Just great to deal with on top. They're just great guys.
The coolest magazine there are. I love their magazine. I love
their
it.
catalog.
Yep. Oh, yes.
But guys, one of the things that happens, of course, a lot of us, and hopefully you do, you have some kind of EDC. Well, you do, whether you really are prepared for it or not. You carry your billfold, your keys, your whatever, your phone.
Well, what's EDC? Everyday carry. It's the stuff that you have on you. When you get up in the mornings, you put your pants on. It's the stuff you put in your pockets every single day. That is EDC in a nutshell.
Everyday carry.
Yep.
And the thing is, of course, that's what everybody does. They carry their phone, their wallet, and their keys. And of course, obviously, if you're in the more prepared mindset or the tactical mindset, you definitely up that with a knife, flashlight, med kit, possibly at least have one close at hand somewhere, and multi-tool. Of course, you conceal carry if you're allowed to conceal carry. And so, self-defense. And so those are things that just typically I just immediately do. And I wear a really good sturdy belt. I think it's important, especially if you're going to, be carrying a firearm. And so, having those things in line. But we're going to talk a little bit more and advance that a little bit, because let's face it, anyone at any time can have a personal SHTF. And that's one thing that I've talked about before. But guys, you're less likely to have an apocalypse on a worldwide scale than you are a personal apocalypse
Say that 3 times fast.
Yes, on an everyday basis. Something can happen. And so we want to talk a little bit about being just a little bit more prepared in your daily life. Yeah, we talk about long-term food, talk about water, and you need to have those things. And if you're watching the news, you need to really have a motivation to make sure that you're a little bit more self-reliant, that you've done some things to get yourself in decent shape with also your family. But that's not what we're really kind of hitting on today. One of the first things to me that is vital, and it's one of the things that I really hopefully inspire people to do, is to have your get home bag. Not necessarily a bug out bag. And we've talked about this before, but just a bag that you have with your bare essentials and your survival items, things that you might need. And guys, I have over a number of times went into my bag in a situation. That doesn't have to be life and death. It doesn't have to be, it can just be you're broke down on the side of the road. It could be
run out of gas.
You run out of gas. And in fact, I did. It was me, the big prepper. I ran out of gas, one time, and I had the family with me. And and the sad thing is because the gas, the way the Hummer is when you put gas in it, there's a gap about that far. Well, all those safety gas cans, it has to be activated a certain way, and we couldn't get it to work. And so I had a bandana, or maybe it was paracord, but I got it and I pulled that safety back and tied it up, and that's what allowed me to put gas in my vehicle. And there are little things like that. One thing that I highly recommend, especially when you're out and about, is to have maps. And I have used paper maps because I went through an area where there was no signal. There was no GPS, and they had made some changes with the road. So I would come up on the road, the GPS would go out. Then it would kind of come back on, but then it was like it didn't identify these roads.
Well, up until about 20 years ago, that's what we used for navigation anyway.
Right.
If you were going out of state somewhere, you pulled your road map out, you mapped out your route that you were going to take, and you used your paper map for it. Then we had the first GPS units that came along that went inside your vehicles, which would generally get you more lost than you would if you're just going on your own intuition.
The TomTom.
Yeah. But and then you'd still end up having to refer back to your road map to find your way back to where the GPS got you lost from. But with technology today, that it does a really good job most of the time of getting you where you need to go until there's a new road that's been added or a road's been closed or whatever. There's some different circumstances there, or you lose your signal. You're up in the mountains, in the boonies, there's no cell phone reception. All of a sudden your internet drops off. You don't have access to your map anymore. And you're like, where are we supposed to turn? Do we just keep driving until?
Right. And in that situation, sometimes you can be in a crisis type situation. A buddy of mine one time,
quarter of a tank of gas or less, and you're like, we need a gas station. And we don't have any GPS.
And there's and sometimes you're out in the middle of nowhere. A buddy of mine was driving down the freeway the other day, or actually last year, and a car just went off the road and went down into a ravine. And he kind of went and he came back. Nobody else even noticed, and it was hidden from the road. And when he got back around, he said he came up, the guy was knocked out and he's down there in this ditch. And so he went to help him. And so, sometimes things just can happen on an everyday basis. So, you just need to have those extra things. One of the things that I like about something like this is I have a number of different items, and we're going to kind of talk about those here. I may pull out a few things, but guys, the biggest thing is you need to have your medical. You need to have some kind of self-defense, especially in today's world. Ooh. And one thing that I think that would be a great addition to most of us that have concealed carry is having some pepper spray. Pepper spray, I've not always been a big advocate of pepper spray, which is kind of funny. But after watching all those riots where any kind of other self-defense would have been pretty much,
excessive force.
Yeah. Or you just get a mob.
Right.
And so with pepper spray, now this is Bear pepper spray. And this is something that we do have. Typically, I'll have a personal pepper spray if I'm carrying it, and pepper spray can, it can diffuse a situation and let you get out of there.
Yep.
And so that's one thing that, I highly recommend, especially in this riot type civil unrest kind of thing that can happen in a moment. But even then, let's say you're sitting at your car and somebody gets road rage and they come up to your car and they're raising Cain. It's better than pulling out your firearm. And pepper spray, in fact, John Correa over at Active Self Protection, he talks about pepper spray. He has a number of videos that show a situation just defused. I mean, boom. So pepper spray is important. Now, you got to make sure that, check your local laws, and also make sure that you're doing the right thing when you spray anyone. And just like you would with self-defense.
One of the things that I would recommend with pretty much any of the pepper sprays out there are most of them, like this one, you can get a trainer for it. So get the trainer.
I got one right there.
Yep.
That's good. Smart.
Use the trainer. Figure out what the fan looks like, what the spray looks like, what your range is. So you have an idea of how you're going to use it if you ever have to deploy it.
That's right.
But it's like using a firearm. You don't buy a brand new gun, stick it in a holster, and be like, I'm going to carry this gun. No, you buy it, you take it to the range, you shoot it, you figure out where the impact is based on your sights, how it shoots, how it feels under recoil, all the little things with it. It's no different. This is a tool that you would use to protect yourself. Don't buy a tool and stick it in your car and be like, okay, it's there if I need it. Get a trainer and learn how to use it before you. So if you do ever have to deploy it, the benefits and drawbacks of it, what its capabilities are.
Right, and that really applies to everything, guys. You need like a fire kit, and I mean, how many times, honestly, in my everyday life do I need to build a fire? I mean, I don't really, but the thing is, fire is a basic survival skill. It's something that we've had to have, especially before technology made us dependent on technology.
That's right.
But the thing is if things go down, and I'll tell you a little story. There was a family driving. It was somewhere in the Northwest. It was in the middle of winter. It was Christmas. They were going from the in-laws going home. They're driving down this road that they couldn't even hardly see. And they were in a Jeep. And actually the Jeep went off the side of the road, went down a ravine, and they were stuck. And they had no cell service. And the dad, thank goodness, he had some skill. And he took one of the spare tires and put it out and built a fire in the spare tire, and was able to they were able to keep warm that way. And they were able to use a few things they had, but they made it because he was able to create fire.
Resourceful.
Yes. Yep. And so, guys, fire starting, especially if you get lost in the woods. You can, there are different things that can happen, and having fire starting skills. But here's the problem. We had our prepper group meeting a few weeks ago, and we did a fire clinic, and everybody's on board. And they've got their fire kits. I even said, bring your fire kits. And so they get their fire kits out. And so, yeah, some of them knew exactly what to do. Most of them did not. And you could tell they had never even used a ferrocerium rod. They'd never baton wood. They'd never created any kind of tinder. And so it was really great to be able to practice that. By the time the evening was over, they were all, not only were they getting more proficient, they were getting excited about building these fires. And so it's a lot of fun too, taking your family out, teaching them some of the basic skills. Your water your water filter system. You may have a little Katadyn Hiker Pro, or you may have a Frontier filter straw, or a number of different things. I really like the Grail. It's one of those press. So you fill it up with water, and you take the other part and you press it, and it filters the water into a container. And so those are great.
Look at you instilling pride in pyromania.
Yeah, I like fire and I like water. I like to stay warm. I like to keep away from hypothermia. Okay, one thing that I would highly recommend now, guys, for your vehicles, you need to have tools in your vehicles. You need to have some basic tools in case you need to fix something, in case a bumper something falls off, or you have to repair something. Keeping basic tools in your car. And for me, I have one of these little MTM. It's called an ammo crate, but it's just a really small square, and it just has room in it. Keep a lot of stuff in there, like emergency signaling. If you're broken down on the side of the road, guys, you can get hit. So having some lighting or some reflectors or whatever, even road flares.
That's right.
But that's basic. Get yourself a good car kit. But one thing to add to that is either a tarp or a heavy meal trash bag. If you're changing a tire and it's raining, and I've done this, and for some reason you got to get up under the car to get the jack in the right place or whatever, having some kind of way to put this down on the ground is just life-saving. But this also life-saving. It's not life-saving, but it can be if you get sick. But the other part is you can actually use this as a poncho. You can use this even as a cover. You can sleep under this. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do with heavy meal trash bags. We're talking about the contractor's bags, and they have them at Lowe's. They come in this box, and we keep them. They're in a big roll. We keep them handy because these things are sturdy. It's not like your standard trash bags. And so, those are just some things. But here's some other things, guys. My brother is a big fisherman. In fact, we have a video coming out about the things he uses when he goes on these huge trips that he uses for emergencies. And one of the things he said, he was up in the middle of nowhere. He got stuck. He was camping, and he was way up, and it got super cold, and it got colder and colder, and he hadn't really planned on it. So he went into his trunk and had 3 or 4 jackets, and he put all of his jackets on and bundled up in it. And, he said that really helped him, to keep from getting hypothermia. You also need to keep, some kind of head cover. We lose a lot of heat out of the top of our head.
So about 80% of your body heat you lose out of your head.
Yeah, and you need to have some rain gear.
Yep.
Rain gear put back. Guys, you can get hypothermia even in the summertime if it's really a hard rain. You need some good, listen, I've been doing this for years. I jump into my car going up to the store in my flip-flops.
Yep.
Yeah. But I was looking to see if Robbie had his flip-flops. It's a little
Not
cool today, though.
That's right.
But I do. And, if something were to happen and I had to walk, I always keep a good pair of boots and socks in my car and a pair of gloves. And so those are just, and then we're going to talk about one last thing, and then we're going to go to some questions. If you guys have some questions or whatever, Sarah Mac's watching right now, and she'll get those out to us. But one thing, guys, I highly recommend, and this is a basic little trauma kit. This is just a cat tourniquet, and it's the compression gauze and hemostatic agent that's in here. This is what we take to the range. We also have standard trauma kits.
Yep.
But I put this in my pocket, or we have it right there on the shooting bench. And this you're always around, because especially when you're in your car and you're driving, you can have a wreck. Somebody else can have a wreck. This could save someone's life.
That's right.
And so having this, available and handy. Okay, how are we doing on questions? Do we have something, or am I surprising you a little ahead of time? While she's putting that together, guys, light is your number one security tool. Now, yes, I have my flashlight in my pocket, and this is a pretty bright light. I mean, it puts out a lot of lumens, but there's a reason why, and it's funny, they don't do it like they used to, but cops used to have these spotlights on their car and they can move them around. Sometimes you need a lot of light. Now, you may not need this Marauder 2 Super Beam 16,000 lumens, but having a good light that can illuminate a large area can be really important, because, you want to be able to see, and sometimes it can, deter people that might be causing problems, or it can signal people that are looking for you. Okay, what do we got?
Alex Ketterman asks, PCC or an AR pistol in the car for SHTF EDC?
Well, that's the question. A lot of people bounce that around.
Me personally, I would go with the AR pistol with like a 10.5 to 11.5 inch barrel. You still stay over 2,000 foot per second. You still get rifle type velocity. It's still very effective out to 300 plus yards. So for me, it would be the AR pistol. I understand the benefit of the PCC with cross compatibility with your magazines and 9mm, to where you can go with Glock mags from your pistol to your carbine. So there is some cross compatibility there with that. But I always look at engagement distances. If it's engagement distances outside of 50 yards, I like to have a rifle caliber. Inside of 50 yards, pistol or rifle, either one works well. But outside of 50 yards, I like a rifle caliber for standoff distance.
Yeah, those are all points that I feel the same way about. But the pistol caliber can come in, especially because really, if you think about it, with self-defense distance, you're going to be a little close in, and so that would be fine. But yes, the one thing about the 5.56 or even a AK version is that you can get out the distance. Yep. You're not pinned down. And so that is one of probably the biggest things. It's one of the things when we talk about the firearms that you need as a prepper, you always need a long range alternative.
That's right.
Whether it's an AR, 308, whatever, because let's say that you're protecting your home. If someone is 200 yards out and all you've got is a shotgun and a pistol, you're just out of luck. And so, you might be able to coordinate a shot, but typically, you're really outgunned. So I kind of like to have the AR-15 for that. Do I love to have my pistol caliber carbines, especially like my little, MP5 clones and those things? Yes. And it's definitely good to have something like that, but I think that I agree with Robbie. It gives you a little more advantage.
Kyle Loper asked, I just discovered the Wazoo cash belt. Seems like a great way to mindlessly have all necessities. Any thoughts or experience with them?
I haven't had the belt, but I have the hat. In fact, I've got a couple of those hats, and there are a bunch of different hiding places in this hat. In the bill of the hat, in the back, and it's comfortable to wear. So I'm sure the belt, I have a couple of belts with those interior zippers, but I'll have to look into that, because I know Wazoo, they do a great job. There's a lot of cool things they do. So, I think that being able to, be discreet, especially if you're traveling. You have your cash tucked away here in case you get robbed and you get mugged, and you have no other choice but to give them whatever. I think the Wazoo belt would be a great, but their cap is also a great little. I mean, you can hide all kind of stuff in there.
Justin Hopkins asks, what is a good source for paper maps? I have an atlas. Is this the same thing?
The atlas is typically not as detailed.
Right. The atlas generally has your major interstates and your highways on it, but a lot of your secondary roads will not be listed on an atlas. What I tend to do is I'll go to a truck stop. It's one of the best places that I found to get maps within like a tri-state area. So like South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, maybe Tennessee, Florida. Just about any of your truck stops where we live, we can get maps for those states right around us. And generally your truck stops off your interstate are going to be the same way for you. They're going to give you the option of being able to get maps for like the 3 or 4 surrounding states.
Yeah, because it's true. A lot of times you go into places, they don't have those maps anymore because people are using GPS. But we have anything on the interstate, typically, if it's on a major interstate, you'll have gas stations. A lot of times we have one just right up here. It's a small gas station, but it does have the road maps because it's right there on the freeway. And you can order them as well.
That's right.
The Florida Outdoorsman asks, any recommendations on air pistols?
I'm gonna tell you, I've got one. I've got a bunch actually. I got different ones.
I was like, just one?
Well, wow. let me tell you, there are certain categories and you can really up it. But what I really like is a Crossman,
the pump,
because it's just pump and it has the little bolt. And I got one because I had one when I was a kid. Actually, my brother had it. I had something different, but I always liked that. And I got on Amazon and I ordered one because a lot of times I have pest, or sometimes this possum always comes and eats my cat's food and I can hear it out there. So I'll go out there and I'll, give him a little bit of persuasion to move on. But those things are great and they're really pretty powerful. You can pump it up to about 10 and you can really, take care of a lot of pests.
Those are around 600 foot per second, and you don't have to worry about a secondary air source to maintain with the CO2 cartridges or with some of the nitrogen cylinders or manual pump to have to pump it up. It's all built in. It's all encompassing in one. I think they're around 650 foot per second at 10 pumps, 8.5, 9, maybe 10-inch barrel on them. They're pretty, for an air pistol that's all encompassing, and the velocities that you get is very compact for everything that you get built in with it.
So
177 caliber pellets on those.
I think you give me at 22, but the thing is, pellets are cheap. So, and I'm not saying that is the one you should get, but I've got that, and I'm gonna tell you, I love it. It's simple, and again, like Robbie said, you don't have to worry about that alternative air source.
That's right, and I would second it. I've had several of those through the years, and out of all the air pistols that I've had some that were more powerful, some that had a lot more bells and whistles, but most of those had secondary air sources. And that one, to be able to do everything all encompassing with it, to be able to throw it in a backpack with some extra pellets and take off, that'd be the one that I'd recommend.
And it's simple to maintain. So that's just, in fact, I'm going to do a review about that particular one because it's been so useful to me. So that's just, but there are a lot of choices out there. That just happens to be the one I like.
Pepe D's Nuts asks, is a Becker BK2 a good EDC knife?
I've got one. Those are pretty big though, aren't they? I think the BK2, yes. Becker makes some good knives. Ethan Becker's a great guy. I know him. That's, it's a good quality knife. And that's really the big thing that you want to be, concerned with is a good quality knife. So yes, as Robbie looks it up.
Joe Central Texas asks, question, thoughts on using wasp spray? I think this was in the same.
Yeah, with the pepper spray. I'm gonna tell you something about wasp spray. I have sprayed wasp. In fact, every year we have to spray wasp early to keep them down, especially in our pool in that area.
I prefer ether with a lighter.
But the one problem with that I find, because I've never actually tested it on myself, but I've gotten the wasp spray in my eye and it didn't burn.
It's a little irritating maybe to your sinuses and stuff, but it's no comparison to some of the bear sprays and things that are out there.
Yeah, it just did, because I really had been kind of talking about it a little bit and looking into it, and I'm just saying the kind I use.
Yep.
But I have had it blow into my face, just and it wasn't like a stream. That might actually do more. But yeah, I wasn't. I was kind of like underwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was going, well, that wasn't a big deal.
And you're kind of limited with distance and range with that too, because the nozzle isn't really designed to create like a huge fog like you would get with some of the bear sprays.
Yeah, but you can get them right in the eyes, man.
You can be precise with it, but 10, 15 feet is probably your max distance that you're going to get out of a wasp spray.
What I would do is look for, in fact, I need to do this as well. Look for some research, some actual research, not, somebody saying, oh yeah, you can take bear spray, or not bear spray, you can take wasp spray. I would not just go off of what somebody's saying, because honestly, I've had a lot of doubts about that for a while. So maybe there's something out there that shows that a direct hit can really irritate, which I'm sure it would do something. It'd be better than nothing. But I think that really, maybe do some permanent damage. Yeah. But I think that the pepper spray in the eyes, that's the best.
Smoke and Joe ask, what do you think about the live straw for water purification?
They're adequate. They're fine. In fact, they're used, especially in third world countries, quite a bit. And there's a lot of different systems they use, and they do a lot. They send them out, and I think it's a good basic filter. I think that there are some better choices, but I think it's adequate. I think the Frontier filter straws and the Pro, I think, are better as far as what they purify from. But as far as, unless you have something really nasty, and honestly, in those third world countries, they're pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So we have some. And we have some in different bags, but I think that there are some that are a little bit better choices. And I think Aquamira is one of them. And of course, your Katadines start to get kind of big and clunky. And of course, there are a lot of good ones out there. But I mean, if I had one, I'd be okay. I got it. But yeah, so I think they're adequate, but I think they're better choices.
Tony Elbows asks, what is Sootch?
Sootch. Okay, my oldest son's name is Seth. And when I started YouTube 13 years ago, I just was playing around, made a couple of videos. I think my first video was global warming is cool. And it was making fun of global warming. But it was my son's, when he was a little guy, I called him Sootch. His name's Seth. I call him Seth Sootch sometimes. Sootch, go Sootch, put it up, Sootch. So when I named my channel, I just called it Sootch just because I thought, I don't know what to name it. And I just did it. And it stuck. And now when he got to be a teenager, he didn't really like being called Sootch. Now that he's in his 20s, he loves it because he's Sootch Senior. I'm Sootch Junior. Not Robbie. Robbie's not my son. But Seth is, that's where it comes from.
The Modern Survivalist says, I would add eye protection to those gloves.
Yes, eye protection is definitely something, because you need to protect your eyes, and especially if you live in areas that have a lot of snow, because you can go snow blind. So yes, eye protection is definitely a big one.
Or even, one of the big things. So, people's always talking about different, SHTF environments and stuff. Well, so you're out at night, you blow out a tire on the side of the road, you have to pull over, you have to change your tire. The first thing that's going to happen, you're going to have to crawl up under your car and get your tire down. Invariably, you're going to knock dirt from somewhere under your car, and it's going to fall in your eyes.
That's a good point.
That is one of the first places with safety glasses. I always keep a pair in my car, in my console, that if I have a blowout, that's the first thing I do is put my safety glasses on before I have to get under the car, start wiggling stuff around, knocking stuff loose that never gets washed, stuck up around the tire, so you don't knock off dirt and trash and debris in your eyes.
That's true. Well, your eyes are very important, and you definitely don't want to be kind of like fighting your eyesight
while you're changing a tire on the side of
the
the road,
or when you're in any kind of self-defense or whatever kind of situation. One thing too is, okay, we're going to go to one more question. We're going to go back to some questions in a minute, but we've got still some things to talk about.
Real Rican asks, question, any classes for EDC and surviving near North Georgia?
There are actually quite a few. Most of them are more bushcraft type. I know Dave Canterbury does a lot of things around the area, and there's the North Georgia Bushcrafters Association, and I think you can go to Griffin Pocket Tool, Casey. who does Griffin Pocket Tool, which is a great little EDC tool. And he's very involved in that. And I bet he has something on his website. But also Fieldcraft Survival. Now they're out of the Northwest, but we took a class with them, and it was just more of a survival type class with bushcrafter-esque, but they're not really bushcrafters. They talk about actually, you know, I like the way that Fieldcraft Survival, and I love Mike Glover, and those guys are just awesome.
And you know, they have classes all over the country,
Right.
Even though they're based out of the Pacific Northwest. They have instructors all over the country, adjunct instructors all over the country that teach courses for them.
Well, they're locally in this area. They have a number of classes that come through here.
Yep.
So yeah, check out those.
Yeah, Fieldcraft Survival. You should be able to find some information on their website about upcoming classes as well.
Okay, one thing though that you know, there are some different ways to put some stuff together, and when you've got you've got something in the back of your car, if you have a truck, you know, of course, you know, keep it however, but you know, one thing that I found, in fact, I'm getting ready to do a video on this coming up. I want to get a couple of the other ones, but this is one of the survival boxes. It's just a MTM box, and it's waterproof. And actually this one's full.
Yeah.
Because I just did the iron rations. In fact, I did an iron rations video, and I used this just because I had it, and I thought this is cool to put together. But these are great little boxes, and they're waterproof. Something, you know, you can keep some extra gear in. This, you know, some kind of pouch that you keep those extra, you know, whether it's your water filtration, whether it's, you know, even, you know, some kind of medical light, again, headlamp. That is one thing I would, in fact, if I only had one light, it would be like this little headlamp. And what I really like about this one in particular, this is the Perun by Olight, of course, but this actually comes off, and you can use it as a standard light, or for that matter, you can use it with the headband. But you know, a headlamp is, to me, number one to have handy somewhere. We use these things all the time, especially when we're running Ethernet cable under the house. This is like a godsend. It's better than putting it in your mouth, and you know, the light in your mouth and that taste of metal. But these are great to have some kind of headlamp. One thing too is a bandana.
Very overlooked item.
You know, I did a video about these. I think it was 50 uses or something like that for a bandana. This is one of the most important things. You know, you can, of course, you can rob banks. You know, that's what goes unsaid.
Protect yourself from COVID.
Protect yourself. You know, I mean, put it on your head. You can put water in it, or dip it in water and put it on the back of your neck. You can use it as a hobo sack to tie to a stick. You can carry stuff. You can use it to pre-filter water to get all the stuff out. I mean, you can use it to, you know, as a splint. I mean, there's a bazillion things. Yep. A good bandana, duct tape. Duct tape's a big one. You know, and guys, it doesn't have to have like this massive thing, but if you just put some of these items together, because, you know, again, when you get down to needing something in particular, you know, when you get into a survival situation, and again, it could be just a personal survival situation. Now, I've got a couple of things here. A fixed blade knife is good to have. It's good to put back. You should be carrying some kind of small, you know, little knife in your pocket, or some kind of EDC knife. But having a fixed blade knife is not a boulder is not a substitute. This is really something that, you know, we all need. I mean, this is just a Gerber, I guess an LMF or a strong arm, but this is just a good fixed blade knife. They're not super expensive. Now you can go to the moon with them. One that I also like are the little Moras. These are great knives. They're cheap. I mean, they're like, you know, $15 or less. And this one actually has the fire steel built into the handle. And then I have paracord wrapped around this with duct tape around it. So this makes it a very small, redundant little package, and everything's in there. Also, you know, you have your car that you can charge your batteries for your phone, but you got to make sure you have your phone charging cable. But having a battery bank backup, especially if you're on foot or you have to do something or your car's broken down.
I tell you, that's one of the things. If we go out hiking, I always take one of these with me. You know, you get out, you're hiking, something happens, you get lost, you can't find your way back, whatever. Your phone's about dead. That's the last thing that you want if you're stuck out in the wilderness somewhere. You want to be able to charge your phone, keep it on to where you can reach a high point and be able to get some cell phone reception to call for help.
Right.
So I always keep a battery pack in my backpack anytime we go out hiking.
Well, you know, last night I plugged my phone in, you know, at night, just plug it in, put it next to my bed. For some reason, the plug down here was undone, which I didn't even know. I just plugged it in, laid down, set my alarm, went to bed, didn't even look. This morning I get up and I'm on my phone and all of a sudden it says 20%. And I was like, what? I charged this. I didn't. And so, you know, sometimes, and that's happened to me before. So
now that's a serious personal SHTF situation right there.
yeah, you run out of your phone. How you going to keep up with Fox News and Facebook and Instagram?
No problem with that yesterday because they were down.
I know. I was kind of like, it was bittersweet, actually. But yeah, that's, you know, making sure, because, you know, a lot of times this is the only communication that we have. Now, if you're a ham operator, that's great to have ham. Even having a two-way radio would be great. But, you know, again, just the basics. Rain jackets on top of your jacket, rain gear, something to keep you warm. Of course, you know, your tarp, having a tarp, or again, heavy meal trash bags. One thing though that I like to have, and I've gotten more and more to where I put these in all my bags and everything else, is a Prybar. Now, the reason I do that is, let's say I'm in my car and I'm trapped, I can't get out, or someone is in their car, or some debris is falling, or a log is falling on somebody and they're trapped. This gives you, that may not be what you need, but it gives you some leverage, gives you a sense of leverage. I know a lot of guys are carrying these little small Prybars, and sometimes that can be good to pry up under something. But having something like this handy, you know, because a car could, you know, you could have your car jacked up and it could fall. And you might need to get just enough leverage where you can get your hands, or, you know, get a group of guys up under it so you can pick it up. But
I tell you one thing that I carry a lot in addition to that is a small hatchet. So the little all steel east wing hatchets, so that you can use the hatchet to pry with, you can use it to chop with, you can use it to baton with, and it really gives you a very versatile multi-tool. So I've carried one of those for years in my EDC stuff.
Now we're going over a lot of stuff, and it might not necessarily, you know, before you say, man, I'm gonna fill my whole trunk up. You know, you have to decide, what are you going to do? The big thing about this is not this is a list of things you need. This is more just some ideas, thinking about some things that you need to, you know, have as a kit to be able to carry with you.
To activate the little brain box about working on some things that'll work best for you in your situation.
Right. So, you know, it's just one of those things, we're putting things together. There was something, oh, well, there's my jacket. Let me see if there's anything else in particular. You know, one thing, guys, that I do depend on a lot, and I do want to mention this, is, you know, your fire kit. And it's really key. And now this is a big one, because this is the Exotac little fire roll, and I love this thing. And it's full of redundancy. Guys, your lighters, sometimes, I mean, and I've had this happen a number of times. I go to strike it and it's out of fuel, but even worse, because at least you have a spark.
That's right.
Even worse,
pops out.
or it just locks up. The wheel locks up. And I found that that'll happen to me at any time. The Bic lighter is my #1 way to start fire. I mean, it's simple, it's convenient, it's easy. Now, I do like these little torch lighters. I guess I need to pop the lid. I do love these little torch lighters, especially when I'm smoking a big cigar. But those are great. But fire steels, also having tinder. You're trying to start a fire without any tinder, and you've got to make your own tinder. It's tough. I mean, you can do it. But it's really tough. So especially in a survival critical type situation, you want to make it as easy as possible. And so Vaseline and cotton balls, or the little tinder tabs, or something that I can use, fat wood, whatever, to be able to get that fire really started and then start adding on. And so fire kits, and I'll tell you this, and I laugh about this, but if you're at a barbecue or a bonfire, you could be the hero, because most people have a hard time starting fire. And the last time that we were up at my father-in-law's and he pulled out the gasoline, I said, whoa. I said, let me just handle that. So I was able to get that fire going. And he was like, wow, that was much better than what I was going to do. I said, no kidding. Blow the place up.
How'd the little guy do a couple of weeks ago with his fire starting skills? My little guy with his fire starting skills a couple of weeks ago. You know, we had set everything up and we've got a certain way that we stack all wood and everything.
When we were over for dinner. That was cool. We were inside having dinner, and we finished up, we're just talking, and his youngest son Sam says, I'm gonna go ahead and start the fire. And they have a fire pit back in the backyard. And so he goes out there. Next thing I know, it's like this inferno coming up, and he's like around there, like he was dancing to the fire. But but you know, having that, having the ability and the skill. Okay,
That's right.
let's go.
And you know, a lot of it is not just having the right materials, but knowing how to put all the right materials together.
Right.
So the fire gets plenty of air. It's got room to breathe.
Yeah,
It has room to fall in on itself and build a nice coal bed where you can add more wood on top of that. So there's a lot that goes into fire building other than just, you know, getting a spark and getting a flame.
Right. Gloves. That's one thing I don't think I said. Gloves, very much. Okay, sir, Matt.
Toolman asks, how do you keep this southern heat from killing your car and truck gear?
Well, you know, anything that's susceptible to it, you know, you just have to be careful. And rotation. You know, that's probably one of the biggest things. But, you know, we do keep some water in our car, but typically I count more on a filter system. Yeah. And having some kind of container when it comes to food. Now, one thing that I do, I'll have food set back in my bag, but it's lifeboat food and it's vacuum sealed. And those are actually made to kind of withstand a lot. So probably temperature fluctuations.
And I'll tell you one of the things that I do in the summertime. I've got a cooler in the back of my vehicle that my day pack, my get home bag fits in. I put my day pack in the cooler and the little frozen bricks that you get that go in the freezer, refreezable things. I drop one of those in my cooler, put my backpack in, put the lid on it, and everything stays cool all day. I don't have to worry about it overheating and stuff burning up.
But it would stay insulated even without the cool
it does.
pack, you know?
It does a really good job even without it. But having that cool pack in there, it keeps the temperature, you know, well below, you know, 80 degrees, 85 degrees. It keeps it. It's not cold by any means. You know, you're not going to put a drink in there and pull a drink out and it's going to be ice cold.
But it wouldn't hurt your bologna sandwich.
It would not hurt your bologna sandwich. That's right. And that's all that matters.
Jay asks, I was thinking about getting my ham radio license. Curious if you have one.
You know, that's the one thing that I get crap for all the time. I've got ham stuff and I've got a lot of friends that have ham, and it is definitely something that you should do. In fact, it's funny in our prepper group, I think almost everyone has their ham except me. And, you know, it's just, I need it. I should be ashamed. So yes, I would highly recommend ham radio. But yeah, we have a lot of guys that have it, and they're always ragging me about it.
Little urban prepper, Indian prepper and survival ask, is there any filter like Sawyer Mini which can remove viruses?
I think the Berkey does, the big Berkey, and the Berkey Sport, which has the Berkey filter system in it. And there has a lot of documentation, but most of them should, I don't know that there'd be many viruses that would be transmittable in water, but you'd probably have to do some research to see what because they have to really spell out what these, because they're tested, like the Grail that pushes that through. But yes, viruses are very small particles. So I don't know that, I'm not really sure, but I don't really know that there's a lot of a danger. I don't know. That's one thing, I guess, with,
I don't have an answer for that one.
But I know that, if there's any kind of there's definitely viruses that are in water. They may not be effective to humans,
right?
But because usually it's more airborne as far as virus goes. But I don't know. Blood viruses. There's a lot of different things. I don't know. That's a good question, and I think I would look and do some research. I know that the Berkey filter system, they have a lot of technical information about what they do take care of, and they take care of E. coli and
pretty much any of your bacteria,
Cryptosporidium and Giardia and all that. But I don't know how that compares to an actual virus.
David Jewell asks, what's a good quality compass?
Your Sylvans are really good. One thing that I use some of the military compasses, especially with the Kamanga. Those are really good. But I think that I've got a ton of compasses. My brain is like going.
The Kamanga would probably be my go-to.
Yeah,
it's pretty much the same thing the military uses. They've got
They even have the tritium on there.
Right.
So you
I
can
think
use it at night.
night vision does the tritium for those with super bright tritium, but that would be the go-to that I would look at.
But Sylvan does a lot of different, really high quality compasses. What I want to recommend, Corporal's Corner. Corporal's Corner. I love that guy. He's a Marine, and he does a really cool video on land nav. Simple, easy to understand. Plus, he's just I just love his dry sense of humor. But yeah, check out Corporal's Corner. He does a number of different land nav things that are simple that you can understand, and he gets into it. And he does recommend some different compasses. So I would check him out.
Gonzalo Opazo asks, which is the best EDC for personal defense, but no firearms or less lethal? I live in a country where we can't carry.
To me, this is one of the best non-lethal self-defense tools.
Mm-hmm.
And number one, it's a flashlight. And you're going to say, oh, it's a flashlight. And I would make sure that it's one that extends past my hand just a little bit. If you can get a crenulated bezel, you want to be careful, though, to not identify this. There's some that are pretty aggressive. If you have certain, restrictions, I would just get a good flashlight. This is the Olight Warrior Mini 2. The reason why I carry it, because it's a larger flashlight, is because I can use this, my thumb here, and of course I can shine it in their face, but I can use this as an impact tool. So to me, this is the number one non-lethal go-to in a physical altercation. I'm going to grab this out. If I grab out some brass knuckles or some kind of weapon, you're going to get yourself more into situations. If you've just got a flashlight and you're using that, the intent kind of drops off. So,
well, especially with a smaller light. I mean, it's not like carrying a 8-cell, mag light or anything. Yeah.
But, this is something that just fits in my pocket.
Yep.
But you want to make sure that it's aluminum. It helps for it to be aluminum, not just a plastic, because you really want to be able to use it. And it's something of good quality. But the Olight Warrior Mini 2, to me, this is what I carry every day. And I used to carry the little small lights. And I'm even looking at the Surefire Stiletto.
Yeah.
I got one, and I love the way it fits in your pocket, but it doesn't make a good self-defense tool. Maybe the Pro. I got the Pro coming because I ordered it, but we'll see. But this, to me, is my number one non-lethal self-defense option first. If it's me and someone else or somebody's attacking somebody, but that, and of course, your pepper spray. I did a video on non-traditional ways for self-defense, different things that you can use on an everyday basis. I saw one time a girl take a pen. She was attacked. She was in an office. It was a little lawn office or something, and a guy came in and he was trying to honestly kill her. I mean, it was in Russia, and he was like she grabbed a pen and just started jabbing it into him. And tactical pen would be something that you might want to consider. Something that doesn't look overt. Yep. So that's probably, when you live in, if you're living under restrictions. But flashlight, good size. This, to me, it's just
hard to beat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sean Farmer asks, I totally agree with everything you all are saying. I'm a fighter fire EMT for 25 plus years. Do you think everyone needs to take a first aid class to use the first aid equipment they have?
Yes. Yep. Skinny Medic, medical gear outfitters, they have some incredible trauma, stop the bleed, trauma classes. I've taken a number. In fact, I think I've taken about 4. And the family's taking them. It's just a great, you definitely need to take classes. So thank you for bringing that up. Just basic first aid is good.
That's right. CPR, everyone should know how to do CPR. Everyone should know how to stop a major bleed, keep the airway open, keep somebody warm. I mean, your 3 C's.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody should know that.
Right.
So those are the things that you should be focusing on, and those are the kind of courses people should look for.
Right. It's funny because when I first went to a trauma class, I thought, I don't know if I can, be able to comprehend it. I mean, I had some basic ideas. It was funny how simple it is, and yet if you don't know what you don't know. So once you go through a good trauma class or a class, you start to understand, oh, this is these are the things I do, and it's not black magic. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. Yes, definitely trauma and first aid
and basic CPR.
Basic CPR.
Yep.
You should know that because your family member could be counting on you to know that. So to me, it's one of those things that you really should know.
Allison Bradshaw asks, question, how do I get my teen daughter on board with the prepper mindset?
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough to get a spouse on board a lot of times with people. I think one thing that happens is we overload them. We overload them with all this stuff. My son, when he was Seth, the Sootch, when he was like, I don't know,
senior.
Yeah, he was about 12. We were having to clean out some areas. We were working on reorganizing our long-term food storage, and he looked up at me and he said, "Dad, why do we have all this food? What's the deal?"
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, "Son, I said, there's nothing necessarily that's going to happen." Of course, this was a few years ago. I said, it's not like, if something were to happen, I said, and God forbid, I said, I'll have food and we'll be able to eat. And I said, but here's the problem if I don't store it up. For me, obviously I live on shooting guns. That's my living, shooting guns, self-defense. I took martial arts for 20, 30 years. Different Okinawan style. I wrestled in high school. My grandfather was a boxer. We grew up boxing. So, I have a lot of stuff that I've just been in that world for a long time. I said, so there's nothing really stopping me from going up and down our street and taking whatever I want to if you guys are starving. I said, but that's not who I am. I'm a Christian. I can't do that. So to keep me from being tempted, we stock up and we store some things back. And he went, makes a lot of sense. But you've got to approach your child the way they are. Of course, being a teenager, they're going to be skeptical anyway. And so I think doing it just is just you do your thing and you kind of just give them a few things here and there and then let them make their decisions. But I think one of the biggest dangers, and it's getting anybody to prep, is to be like, man, have you seen what's going on? We got to get some stuff together. Oh my God. And you're just dumping tons of information.
Yeah, just
they're like
overwhelming.
Yeah. It's like, they go the other direction. So I think it's coming in.
And, I kind of like to start with just giving them the tools that they need for their vehicle, a get home bag, some water sources, some different things like that they have on hand. The first time they have to bust into that bag and get something out of it because of a situation that they're in, they're going to be like, maybe Dad was right. Maybe Mom was right. Maybe I should look a little more into this. So giving them the tools, even without a ton of, overwhelming them with stuff, just be like, hey, I put this in your car. It's got this, this, and this in there just in case you need it. So it's a starting point for them.
That's a great to bring that up. That's perfect. I've done that with all my kids. They all have their own bags. I just gave it to them. We went through a few things, but I don't overwhelm them. Thank you I'm glad you brought that up like that.
Texas Mike asks, what size and good brand to get for a home bag do you suggest, leaders, etc.?
Well, it's according to, if you're planning a bug out, that takes a large bag. But again, that's fine to put at your home. And there are a number of different Vertex and Mystery Ranch and Maxpedition. There's some good bags. But as far as a get home bag, I like to keep something that's maybe 30 liters, just enough to where I can get it on my back and not hinder me from getting home as fast as possible.
Yep.
So that's just kind of the way. This is a direct action dust. This is a great bag. And it's one that I've had for a good while. In fact, it was a gift from a good friend of mine. And I love it. But I would recommend getting something that's going to hold up, because you're going to depend on it. If these things start falling apart, you're going to be SOL. Yeah. So, but you don't have to break the bank. And there's a number of different bags. 511 makes great bags, Maxpedition.
Well, one of the big things to consider too is the bigger the bag you get, the more stuff you're going to put in it, and the more weight you're going to have to carry. Now, you get this great big bag, you pick this thing up, you throw it on your back, and it's all you can do to pick it up and get it on your back. And now you're 10 miles in on a walk, and this thing weighs like 6 tons on your back. And all you're thinking every step is, what am I going to get rid of out of this bag? What can I live without? And that's really the way you need to approach your get home bag, is what can I live without, not what can I live with. So, and focus on what you can do without in your bag instead of what you can do with. And that's going to help you to minimize the size of the bag and maximize what you're actually putting in the bag.
Yes, that's right. That's a good point. The one thing about, using the rule of threes, 3 seconds without hope, 3 minutes without air, 3 hours in harsh conditions, 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food, and you're dead. I mean, and these are, there's variations a little bit there, but that's what I base all of my survival preps. Self-defense and medical flow in between.
Mm-hmm.
So, first off is you got to make sure that you have the air, something to keep you from having hypothermia or from, heat stroke. And then, you need to have your water, however you're going to do that. And then, of course, food is a little bit lower on the list. Now, it will keep your energy up, and there's some reasons why you do need to have food, but food isn't honestly the priority. So once you get that and you have a good fixed blade knife and, your map, and you have a fire, you can add those things in, but be careful what you add slowly, do I really need this? And then some things you can use that are going to keep the weight down, like this heavy meal trash bag, instead of a Tarp.
And are multi-use. You can do a ton of different things with that bag, and like with 550 cord, it's very versatile with the things you can do with it.
Thank you. That's one thing we didn't mention, which is always in my bag, is paracord, 550 cord, some kind of cordage.
That's right.
It could be a rope for that matter, but cordage is important. Yes.
Count Vlad asks, what do you guys think of Goal Zero basic solar panel?
I'm not familiar with those particular, but I think that solar is a great way to we have like a solar generator, and solar panels right now are a big thing, which, I have a solar battery backup. I have solar panels for different things. So don't know about that particular one, but I think solar is important. It can be utilized in a lot of different ways. Yep. We're actually looking right now at purchasing another solar generator. Now, we have one, but this is a small one, and it does certain things. But there are some really nice ones out there that, and no matter if the grid's down or not, you're able to have some kind of capability.
That's right.
So I think solar's great. I wish I could answer your question directly, but just as far as solar, I think it's an important thing to utilize.
John G asked, do you have a suggestion for locking a firearm in your car? Console safe? ?
There are a lot of different things. Secure-It, which does this wall. They have a lot of different boxes and different things. In fact, I'm getting ready to install one of their boxes in the back of my Hummer that fits back there, and it just locks it down, and I can, keep a rifle in there and just have it locked down.
If I was looking at doing a console, some type of locking deal in my console, it wouldn't be just dropping a pistol in the console, closing it up and locking it, because it's so easy to just rip the top off of a console. If you're going to do something within your console, a box that's made to fit on the inside of your console that actually bolts to the body of your vehicle, and not just with sheet metal screws either, something that has some big flange washers on the inside of the box, and then big flange washers and lock nuts that go on the bottom side of your vehicle as well after you drill through. That way you can bolt everything into the vehicle, and it's more of a permanent solution inside the vehicle to be able to secure your firearm. Then it makes it much more difficult for someone to actually get in there with any type of pry bar, try and pry the lid open or try and pry the box open.
But most of your people that are going to be breaking into your cars are going to just be smash and grabs.
They will.
But I agree with Robbie. I think it's good to have as much as secure as possible.
That's right.
But one thing I would recommend is cable, having a really strong lockable cable, and wrap it around an anchor point in your car, and you can run it through, the trigger guard or through the action. And that's what I would do all the way through the action. If you're going to leave it in your vehicle, and that way they can't get, they could have some huge bolt cutters, but I mean, how many people walking down the street have huge bolt cutters? And then there's even metal mesh bags where you can secure them and then lock it in. In fact, my get home bag, if I'm really going somewhere, I can actually drop my get home bag in this mesh, lock it down, and then it's secure. You can even take a chain and wrap it around and padlock it. So to me, I agree, especially if you're going to be in somewhere where, they're really going to come in hard. But for every day, like you go into the store and somebody smashes out your window and they're just grabbing stuff. There's some really cool lock boxes that are metal that have keys or, and they have a place that the cable can run through it and you can attach it to the inside of your frame. A buddy of mine has a Jeep and he's always had to figure out ways to do it. Now I think he has one of those console things. So there are ways to do it. And guys, one thing don't think about is, oh, I've got a hiding place under my console where this will come up and I can stick it in there. Because when my truck got stolen, that's the first place they went to. I didn't have any guns in there, but they lifted it up and I had some flashlights and a med kit. They got all that. They knew where all the spots were, so they know where the hiding places are. So, okay, we are at 1 o'clock already. Wow, that was fast. Thanks for all the great questions, guys. Absolutely. We really appreciate it. I hope that, we just gotten you to think. It's not necessarily a list, but it's some things that you can just use to maybe to spur you on to make sure that you're just better prepared. Because again, we kind of go into it going, okay, I got my knife, my flashlight, my phone, my keys. I'm ready for the world. And, there are some other things contingency plans that you need to consider. Really appreciate Robbie for being here always. Again, check out wheatonarms.com and gomedgear.com for the medical side. And really appreciate Sarah Mack for being here. And we appreciate Sportsman's Guide for sponsoring today's episode. Again, it's $20 off every $100 or more purchase. I mean, if you make a $100 purchase, that's $20 off. Yep. And so it's or 20%. So it's a great price. And y'all can hear Lance over there, our German Shepherd. He's ready to sing.
He said we hit 1 o'clock. It's time to turn it off.
It's time. It's time. He knows it. He knows it. But we really do appreciate Sportsman's Guide, so check them out.
Yep. Check out their Buyers Club as well. Buyers Club, you get free shipping on a lot of their items, not ammunition, but a lot of items you get free shipping on, and also some reduced prices for being a member of the Buyers Club as well. So another great opportunity to save some money with Sportsman's Guide.
Oh yeah. Okay, guys, next week we will be not here. We won't have next week, but if you are a regular, but we do always appreciate you being here. We'll be on the week after. So be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic.